What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Science of Flipping podcast. Today, I bring on a very special guest. Mike and I really agree on a large part about what it takes to really go from an owner-operator to a leader in scaling your business. And so I brought Mr. Mike Simmons on as a special guest. What's up, dude?
Hey, man. How you doing? Thanks for having me on, by the way. I appreciate it.
Of course. No, I couldn't be more honored for you to be on here because you and I really firmly believe, some of the fundamental things that it takes from going from, launching a wholesaling business or a real estate investing business to growing it to really kind of scaling it. And so I think it's important for people not just to hear, how do you get started and what marketing, but kind of this other side of business, which really is where you are able to go past just the growth mode into kind of a scaling operation. Both you and myself have larger operations, but it took quite some time and a lot of learning lessons, not earning lessons, but learning lessons. Yeah. And so I definitely wanted to bring you on and share a lot about that. I know you have a great book. I want you to make sure to share a lot about that book because I think people need to read that as well. So I'm excited for you to be here, man.
Cool. Thanks again. I really appreciate it. And you're right. We do agree on it. And there's a whole world of difference between running a business on your own and building and scaling. It's just totally different.
Absolutely. So give everyone kind of a background of how you got started. You and I got started about the same time, kind of have very similar paths along the way, but give everyone a little background about yourself.
Yeah, definitely. So I started real estate back in 2008. Really got interested in it before that, but I spent a little bit of time in that, analysis, paralysis, fear, doubt, all those things before I actually got started. But actually made my first offer that got accepted in 2008. And I was a house flipper back then. And prior to that, or even right then, I was working in corporate. I was a program manager at an automotive company. I'm from Michigan, so it's heavily automotive. Yeah. And I did this business. I built my company in the beginning while I was working full time. So it was nights and weekends. And, in Michigan in the wintertime, it gets dark at 5 o'clock. So after I left work, like I'm using my cell phone flashlight and I'm in basements with no power in the house, like looking at electrical panels. Like that's how I ran. That's how I had to do things. But I hustled. I worked my butt off for, 4 or 5 years before I was able to go out on my own. But that's just, I think that's what it takes. I was just talking to somebody the other day and they're like, well, what if people don't have time? I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. You've got time. I guarantee you're binge watching something stupid and you're wasting time with other things. Like you may have to tell your friends you can't go out every weekend. Right. Or you may have to just like not do something you normally would want to do. It's about sacrifice for sure. I mean, if it was easy, everyone would do it kind of a thing. But I did it on nights and weekends for years, and it was not easy. Because by the way, I had a full-time job. I had kids. I have a wife. I had a mortgage. Like I had yard work. Like there were things that had to be done. And I get that. Everyone has those. I'm not complaining, but I'm saying don't use that as an excuse. You have time. You're just not making time.
That's right. I actually have a personal client, and one of the things that I'm like trying to really get in, ingrained in him is this ability to, yes, we're doing this for the lifestyle, but the money is what creates the lifestyle, right? So don't live the lifestyle prior to that. And it is a challenge for some people, and especially for people who do have some money in their pockets, to be able to realize like, oh, I want to build this new business, but I want to just I want to scale it now without doing the work first, right? And there's that whole, there's a hurdle there, and there's, people are hitting their head against the wall with that kind of stuff, because I don't believe you can. I think if you're listening to this and you're starting your career, you need to be doing the work. Try not to spend a bunch of money. And if you do have a bunch of money because you're changing careers, you're changing industries, you still need to be doing the work. Try not to spend a lot of money, because you need to understand what it takes to be able to manage and then lead to other people in this industry specifically, which is in large part about what, Mike, you talk about in your book, and, getting to that place of being a real leader and what it takes to do that.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, when I was in the automotive industry, there would be a room of engineers, right? The engineering department. They'd go in there and they would take the most talented engineer and they would do something absolutely crazy. They would promote that person, him or her, to the engineering manager. Now they're managing people, they're leading, they're becoming, leaders of this department. But they're good engineers. No one said they were good leaders, right?
That's right.
And then you find out half the time they're not good leaders. They're terrible leaders. They're just good engineers, and it fails, right? So how do we avoid that? Because we have to be good operators in our business to get to the point where we want to grow and scale and bring on a team. Usually what comes before the scaling and the growing is you get good at marketing, you get good at finding leads, you get good at getting those purchase contracts signed, and you get good at managing your contracting crew or whatever. Like you get really good at that stuff, and then you go, now I want to scale, I want to build a team. Well, now you're not doing the marketing necessarily or the sales or whatever. You're bringing people on to do that, but you have to train them. When I first started hiring people, what I did, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs do, is like metaphorically speaking, I would say, okay, we're on the 1 yard line. You see that 100 yards away? It's a goal line. I want you to get there. Get to that goal line. I don't care how you do it. Just get there and get there fast, by the way. And I would go, you know? And it's like, that's not how you train people. That's not how you inspire people. It's how you frustrate them and it's how you burn them out. So I'd bring people on my team and I thought, because I'm paying them, they're going to work as hard as me. But you know what? A lot of times they won't. They're not incentivized the same way, because if this becomes a $10 million company and $5 million in profits, they don't get the same cut you get, right? So don't expect people to be incentivized the way you are, but there are ways to incentivize and build a team and make people happy and excited to work there, even though it's not just money. It's a lot of times it's not the money. It's other things that are really keeping them on your team. But at the first part of it is just knowing how to bring them on board and how to train them properly so you don't burn them out. I burn people out. I would give them 10 things to do day one.
Sure.
And they would fail. And I'd go, what's the problem?
Yep. So if you're a wholesaler, going back to when you first started to grow, because I think there's three fundamental phases of our business, right? And I think a lot of people say, getting started and then scaling. I break it up into three, because you launch your business, you grow your business, and then you scale it, right? Yeah. So, talking specifically about that growth stage where you hire your first person or your second, or maybe VAs, what are your first couple hires in a wholesaling business that you would recommend?
Well, yeah, I agree with you. And I think there's a step between growing and scaling that people sometimes forget, and it makes it difficult to scale, is they don't document their process. And I think you have to document your process. And again, the excuse is, I don't have a process. Yeah, you do. You're closing deals. You have it might be crappy, but still you have a process, right? So document it, even informally, document it. So when you start bringing people on, they know what it is that you're trying to get them to do, right? Because showing them the goal line and saying go is not a way to do it. Now, who do you hire first, and how do you determine that? In my opinion, you want to the first person you hire, you want to look at your company, and you want to identify a couple of things. Where are the bottlenecks? What do you not like doing, and what are you bad at? Because I can almost guarantee you all three of those things are the same thing, right? Mm-hmm. What you don't like doing, you're probably bad at, and you're procrastinating and putting it off, so it's creating a bottleneck in your company. It's almost always they're married, right? Identify that and be honest with yourself. For me, every personality assessment I've ever taken in my entire life has told me emphatically and in bold letters, you suck at details. You will fall on your face if you're asked to be detail oriented. So the first person I hired was a transaction coordinator. In my company, that's the person that takes the PA, takes the assignment contract, sends it to the title company, makes sure we get EIN numbers, articles of incorporation, death certificates, all the things that we have to gather and a lot of times on these closings. And they're looking at the HUD and they're going line by line and making sure that everything's right. I'm bad at that. And it was painful for me. It was a bottleneck. Like closings got delayed when I was a one-man band because I wasn't getting on top of the closing documents. Like I was letting them sit in my inbox, and then the title company would go, hey, we're supposed to close tomorrow and I don't have XYZ. And I'd go, well, let's push it to Tuesday. And then I would hustle and do it because I was like under the gun. But I hired that person and I said,
sure,
just be on top of this for me. Right. And title work and transaction, all that. It's like herding cats, man. You're trying to get buyers and sellers, and for whatever reason, neither one of them seem to want to cooperate half the time. And it's like, you have to stay on that, right? So that was the first person I hired. Second person I hired was a salesperson. Now, in my company, I was doing the sales, and I thought I was okay. I was adequate. It's my company, so I'm passionate about it, and I'm interested in getting contracts. So I was getting contracts. But when I hired an actual salesperson to come in my company, and I started giving them the same quality and quantity of leads that I was getting, and they were closing at a much higher rate than I was, I just had to realize and stand back and go, oh my gosh, that's what sales looks like, because I was really under-equipped to be great at that. I thought I was okay until I saw someone who that was their superpower, sales. Yeah. And they started closing everything, man. Like I was going on 5, 6 appointments to get a deal.
Yep.
This guy's going on 2 or 3 to get a deal. Like, he's just crushing it. But I was having him answer the phones because at the time that made sense because synergy, right? He's answered the phone, he creates rapport, he goes to the doorstep, they answer the door. It's, hey, it's a guy from the phone. I like this guy already. And it worked. It's just not scalable. So when we started scaling up, I hired a phone person. Now I want that phone to just ring off the hook because I want them answering the phone all day long. So then the marketing goes up and things sort of start stacking. And that's how we scaled in the early days.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a lot of similarities to what you would probably tell someone who's in that from launching to growth mode into scale mode.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only thing I would maybe my own personality would differ is I'm just a firm believer of letting go of your revenue generating activities last. But based around how you kind of develop that, you gave him 50% of leads, you had 50% of leads. What I see people do too often is, I need to hire a salesperson because I don't like doing it anymore. I don't want to do it or I'm not good. And then they give that person all the leads and their business erupts, right? And I think that's the way you were doing it. I like a lot more than what I think people believe is the right way, which is to hire some experienced salesperson, most likely from a different industry, and then think that they're going to be able to translate into this without you really, again, leading them. You know, and you brought up another point. I don't want to get far off the subject, but how you train them and how they get trained. I mean, our call right now is on Zoom. This is how I train people. I create the system, I record it by video, and I give it to them because they don't have to ask me questions anymore. This is the process. This is the strategy and the way we do things. Watch this over and over and over again. So yeah, I think, you know, there's still a lot of the similarities, you know, now when people are trying to scale is what you brought up.
Yeah, absolutely. You couldn't be more right, by the way. I just want to say, when it comes to, you know, specifically our industry, the sales position is super pivotal. Like I've seen people switch out that position or take it back on themselves and just overnight change the fortune of their company because sales was killing them. And that's
100%.
Yep.
Yeah. And the next thing is knowing your personality and where your strengths lie, right? I mean, that is really important, you know, so kind of similar to you, details are not my strong suit, right? This is why, you know, even getting this booked, you or your assistant worked with my assistant, Andrea, and those type of things are not my best suit. That would have, us scheduling this would have taken months if I had to get it done, right?
Yep.
And so, you know, for me, my first hire and what I'll usually suggest is similar, but I use it more in a catch-all. So I'll suggest hiring like a personal assistant, right? And they are really a catch-all. They also do my transactional coordinating until there's enough volume to literally segment that out, because between transactional coordinating, you know, marketing, getting the list, putting the email blast together, etc. I mean, they're doing so many different things that there's no real title, right? Like, for example, Andrea, who's my personal assistant, she's also my marketing manager. She's everything, right? She kind of is like the COO to some extent, right? But that takes me into where I can be effective and I can be in a sales role, in a people role, in a negotiating role, whether it's with the buyer or with the seller, or being a leader in hiring the team to do so, right? And so I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. There's no doubt. I wasn't smart enough to hire a personal, like an executive assistant or whatever, an assistant. I wish I've done it sooner because I hired someone for that part of my business that was detailed, but for everything else I have going on, I was still dropping details, right? So I couldn't agree more. I think having that assistant, that, you know, executive assistant, whatever you want to call them, who's handling those details in all aspects of your life is huge. I think it's just smart.
Yeah, if you're in the launch phase, if you're listening to this, you're in the launch phase, you're going to do all this. You have to, right? But if you are going to get into this growth and scale phase, listen to what Mike's saying. Listen to what I'm saying. Like, you hire your weakness, you hire the bottleneck, you hire the things you're bad at or not good at, because it'll help you create more revenue. Your function is to create revenue for the company. That's a real company, right? I think the one cautionary tale I've seen too many times before is people get caught up in this, I want to scale, I want to scale, I want to scale. And then they scale, they hire incorrectly, they try to remove themselves completely out of the business, and their business crumbles. And it's because they're no longer in the business. And the example I tend to use all the time, and there's even better examples now, but I think about Steve Jobs. And I don't know if you ever read that book. I think it was one of the best books I've ever read.
Every Steve Jobs book there is. Yeah, I love it.
think about at his level how ingrained in his business he was on a day-to-day basis. Like he just was in there, and everyone wants to scale so that they can have this amazing life and they don't have to work and blah blah blah, own a business, not a job. I respect the shit out of it, I get it, and I'm a champion of that. But there's a right and a wrong way to do that. And if it's good enough for Steve Jobs still to be in his business and managing his leaders and being in meetings, then it's good enough for us too, right? And I think that's the one thing I think people try to too quickly remove themselves from their business because they finally scaled, and it falls apart because they don't have the ultimate leader, which is like the general, and no one stepped into the general's boots.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. And scaling too fast is the thing, right? Like trying to overnight go from doing everything to doing nothing. Hiring people, training them, motivating them, it's a little bit of a slower process if you do it right. Because I did try to do it fast in the beginning, and I just burned through people. Like our revenue went up, but it was sloppy, it was ugly, and it was like people leaving and quitting and getting fired all the time, and it's like all this chaos, and no one knew if their job was safe. It was really intense for a while until I went, hold on, I think we're the problem here. Like I'm the problem. People are coming and going this fast. It's me. I'm a bad leader. I'm just throwing them into the fire, and that isn't the way to do it. And it was like hell or high water. I went to scale, and I built a shaky foundation that I had to go back and repair years later because it was just too fast, too much, sloppy.
We'll talk about your book a little bit. Do you have one that you can even, because this video will be seen all over YouTube and social media and everywhere. So show people the book and let's talk about it a little bit.
It's called, let's see here. It's called Level Jumping. And the byline is how I grew my business to over 1 million profits in 12 months. Now, it doesn't say I removed myself in 12 months, right? It's fast. I got to 12 million in profits. And like I said, full transparency. And I'm the last person who's going to say, oh, I did it the right way and everything was great. I made mistakes. I got there and then realized shortly thereafter, the foundation and the people that I put together weren't exactly what I wanted. And so my business from that first 12 months to now, there's only one person who's still there. Like everyone else churned because I had a top grade and all those things. Like I realized I built a team of people who were capable, but ultimately could not take me any further. They were just kind of like, they were placeholders that could get me to the next point. But the book is specifically about, so, I speak at different events and I talk and I talk about this whole like getting to the next level and scaling up. And then people inevitably ask like, well, what did your business look like? And how long did it take you to scale up? And I tell them and they're like, well, how'd you do it? Well, I can tell you what I don't necessarily sit down and share is like, what apps do I use? Like what CRM? It's all like stuff you need. It's cogs of the wheel, but that's not really what it means to scale. I know what it means to scale is removing myself, not from the business, but from certain functions and letting people go in who are better than me at that and do it, i.e. the transaction coordinator. I brought them in, I trained them, they took it over, they were better than me at it, right? But now, yeah, maybe I'm not great at it because I don't like details, but now I have to manage that person. Like I can't just let them go and never talk. Like I have to manage them. So what does it look like to hire responsibly and effectively? What does that look like, right? Do you just meet the first person who applies and they seem pretty cool, so you bring them in? I don't know. I think it means a little bit more than that. I think there's a little bit more sophistication to it. Some of it is gut feeling, but there's a process that I go through, and I've done it sloppy. I've done it fast. I've hired fast and fired slow, which is the opposite of what you should do, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've switched that model up. And then once you get them in there, how do you motivate them? How do you keep them excited? The fact of the matter is, guys, the most people that you're going to be bringing into your company, they're millennials. And if you're Gen X or a baby boomer or whoever, however old you are listening to this, realize different people have different motivations. Some people are going to come in and they are going to be money motivated. You pay them money, you give them a good, commission structure or whatever, they're going to go crush it because they want money. Some people want autonomy. Some people want to be appreciated. You appreciate them. They don't necessarily care about making a ton of money. They just want to, or you show them what your company's about. For wholesalers, right? A lot of times we get a bad rap, but it's like, hey, we're finding people who are in tough situations, who have real problems, and us buying their house is solving their problem, right? And at the closing table, you probably know this, Justin, you get way more hugs than, somebody not being happy. Like they're happy. You get all this like love poured out. It's like we're helping people, and you bring people on your team and you expose them to that and you show them what we're doing. it really motivates some people. Like, I'm helping people. I love this, right? So how do you motivate people? And then, I touch on mentors and masterminds because I think those are invaluable. You want to talk about how do you scale a little bit faster than you normally would? Surround yourself with people who've already scaled to where you want to be. Ask them what they did. Ask them what
Mm-hmm.
they did wrong. Like get their roadmap. I always say other people's hindsight can be your foresight if you just surround yourself with the right people. Imagine if you can look at someone who is where you want to go and they tell you everything that went right and wrong along the way, and you can apply that to your own business. My goodness, that's the whole. That's the essence of my business level, or my book, Level Jumping, is how do you level jump? How do you go not just to the next level, but to the next level? Well,
Yeah.
you're not going to do it by yourself. You need people around you that know what they're doing.
No doubt. I Dude, this is a book that everyone has to read just because it's so true. A lot of listeners out there are just getting started, so it may not be incredibly pertinent right now, but you still need to understand this. And again, to what Mike's saying is make this your foresight, right? Understand this already, so when the time comes, you're not fumbling around and making probably the same mistakes I made, and I'm sure Mike made, and
Yep.
and you get to cut to the front of the line, and that goes along with masterminds and coaches. That's how you can skip the mistakes, right? And so where can everyone find you, Mike? This has been great, but I want everyone to be able to find you and find the book and the whole thing.
Yeah, totally. So the book is called Level Jumping. It's on Amazon, so you can just look for it there if you want. You can get a hold of me directly at my podcast is called Just Start Real Estate. If you want to check that out, I'd love it. And then if you want to shoot me a message, you can go to mike@juststartrealestate.com. And then the only event that I do every year, like in person, that's open to the public. It's an event. It's going to be in Orlando on the 15th through the 17th called Flip Hacking Live. So if you go to my website, you can find information about that there.
Love that. And I'm very aware of your event, and it's a killer event. And so hopefully, we are recording this in the middle of this whole chaos of COVID and whatnot. So let's hope, and I will pray that this event still does go on and is a rocking event. So thank you very much for spending your time. I know you are slammed and you're really busy, but thank you for joining us at the Science of Flipping and being a part of this.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on. I really do appreciate you letting me come on and talk.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks again, bro.